George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Well, this sister, Gwen Webber-McLeod, the CEO of Gwen Inc., right? Leadership is a job that is not done alone. CEO who is training folk all over the country, who especially wants to build leadership with people of color, who especially sows into people in their legacy, created the You Can't Fail conference because your legacy says you can't. That sister that even poured, you talk about legacy, this sister poured into me. She didn't have to do it, but she said, you know what? I want to sow into your business so the inspiration for the nation. I believe in you, brother, and I'm sowing into your business. That's the sister that did that. This sister's a leader in her community. She's been on the front line. She's been calling out racism in the burn and in Syracuse too, but especially in the burn, putting herself out there in them streets. Yeah, there's a whole lot we could talk about with this sister, but you know what? She got a book, right? She got a book. It's called Your Leadership Journey. And let me get the subtitle here. I had it right here. I got cute. Living and Leading in and on Purpose, my dear sister. My dear sister. And I have to say it because, I could, just be, what do you call it, objective, but I can't. I can't do it with this one here because, when we say that people walk the walk, this sister walks the walk and the talk too. She says what she says, believes what she says, and she delivers on what she says. She's the real deal. So if I don't say anything else, and Gwen, you haven't heard it before, here you go. I'm just the flowers, okay? The flowers. There you go.
Thank you so much for having me back.
So let's talk about this book. And let me start with this first question, and you can tell me about the book in the context of your answer to this question. But you say that leadership is a full body experience. And when you said that, I felt that. I felt that because, and you and I have shared some things, as a leader in my own way, I've gone through some things. And when you said it's a full body experience, I said, I get that. I get that. So talk to me.
Yeah, I really am a proponent of inviting leaders, us, right, Black leaders in particular, to really think about leadership as a whole body experience because the most effective Black leaders I support, have historically observed, have really come at leadership as a head, heart, body, spirit kind of thing. And I think that, I've been talking a lot about this with my clients. As Black people, we're raised to be pragmatic, right? And so a lot of times, if it's not pragmatic, we don't allow ourselves to think about it as it relates to our career. So when I'm saying to someone, how does your gut feel about this? What is your heart telling you to do? They're kind of giving me the side eye because they don't see that as leadership, a leadership resource or leadership behavior. When in fact, I probably in some way touch hundreds of leaders a year. The most successful leaders I know are listening to their head, heart, gut, and their spirit with the same intensity that they're paying attention to their budget. And the other thing that I observe is often as leaders, our body is telling us something before our mind can register what it really is. And so a lot of times when I'm working with leaders who are just navigating the challenges of running an organization or just navigating the challenge of being who they are in spaces that aren't necessarily created by us for us, I always ask them, how does that make you feel? What is your body saying to you? And a lot of times they'll say, Gwen, I've had a stomach ache for a week. I'm like, don't ignore that, right? Because a lot of times your body knows before your brain can figure it out. So the minute the gut goes off, pay attention. That's what I mean by that.
And when you say that, that's in some ways all the leadership books and theories, right, say you're supposed to take the emotion out of it. Yeah. And I've been in trainings with you and you ask that question, tell me what's going on in your head and your heart. You ask that question that way. And yet we're told, quote unquote, to take the emotion out of it. So we're talking about emotions in this or not?
Well, I think that we're not being honest with ourselves if we don't honor that the folks who come through those doors every day are humans. And, my client, well, I just don't want people bringing their personal stuff to work. And my perspective is that your workplace is run by emotion, right? People's feelings are directly connected to whether or not a company has the ability to achieve its business goals, right? And so I think that as leaders, we have to learn how to manage our emotions in certain situations, but I'm always inspiring my clients to feel all of their feelings and to trust them. And so there's a skill set, right, of managing your emotions. But when we as leaders don't allow ourselves to feel or be emotional, what we're doing is psychologically numbing ourselves and suppressing things that, if we don't allow ourselves to feel them, manifest themselves in heart attack, stress, anxiety, disease, whatever. So I am really about inviting leaders to understand that leadership really is about the head, the heart, and the spirit, and that how you feel about something is directly connected to your capacity to do something. So yeah, I think that technically I understand what my colleagues who say that mean, but in real life, in real practice, and the most successful leaders that I paid attention to, and we've got 400 years of them in the Black community, right, to pay attention to, all of them talk about how they felt about something and that feeling led them to make the decision. So it's really about understanding the distinction between managing your emotions and shutting down or suppressing your emotions. Doing that will definitely over time derail you as a leader.
Say more about the emotions of a team, though, right? Because there's also this feeling that you've got to get that out of the way to get the work done. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, I do believe that relationships really matter, and I think they're the only thing that do. And what I mean by that, George, is that if we really reflect deeply, every single success a company or an organization has is directly connected to the condition of the relationships they have with their team, with their strategic partners. On the flip side of that, every challenge or failure that a company or organization has is directly connected to the conditions of the relationship that exists between and among the people who are around whatever it is we're trying to do. So when it comes to a team, what I offer for mid-level managers conditions is to not be in denial about the fact that what's going on in your meetings or people are coming there literally in their feelings, right? About all kinds of things. The trick for you as a manager is to get in a relationship with your team individually and collectively so that you understand when people are bringing emotions into the room, so that you as a manager can say, listen, I'm going to have to announce a change. We're all going to feel some kind of way about it. What I want to do is to do this in a way that helps us navigate our emotions while we're continuing to be productive. So where I think some managers struggle is they let it go too far, right? Like I've worked in companies and organizations where people's personal feelings and reactions to business things are sucking the life out of productivity.
Okay.
So there, as a manager, we have to kind of click into that, right? So I go into organizations all the time where how people feel about each other in negative ways, low trust, right? Disrespect is what's causing the company or organization not to be able to achieve its goals. So at that point, we have to support a manager in how to address something like that.
Talking to Gwen Webber-McLeod. She's the CEO of Gwen Inc. Her new book is called Your Leadership Journey, Living on and in Purpose, Living in and on Purpose. Okay. And one of the things that's really fascinating is we've talked about this in the past is the 4 C's of leadership. Right. And so in the context of the 4 C's of leadership, let's talk about how you decided that it was time to put all your experiences to pen and paper. And let me say something about this book, which I encourage everybody to get, especially if you're a leader who is seasoned, or even if you're new in the game, or even mid-level. Because what I like what you've done is it's not only the theory, but there's also the practice, and there's also the reflection, and there's also the tools. Like you're not playing. Like when I'm looking at this, right, I'm like, man, this is just how she is. Like if there was something that if this book was any closer to the way you really teach and lead, this is right here. So talk about your decision
Yeah.
to do this.
So my company's mission is that we help leaders achieve their business goals by focusing on the competencies of confidence, competence, courage, and calm, right? So we talk about confidence, competence, courage, and calm.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship between that mission statement and this book, it's very much a direct connection for me
Mm-hmm.
because I landed on that as my mission statement. I'll never forget, I was literally on a business trip and sat up in the middle of the night and wrote those 4 words down because I'd been mulling in my head, like, what is it that I see in myself that makes me effective? What is it that I see in my colleagues that are successful? And it occurred to me that we are aware of those competencies that people often describe as an attribute, but we build them like a muscle. Like we approach self-confidence as the
Mm-hmm.
development of a skill set. We approach technical competency and interpersonal competency. So that idea makes my company kind of unique in the space because when I'm working in a company or organization, I'm working with you, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
I'm helping you understand that everything rises and falls on leadership and frankly the condition of your head, heart, and spirit. And that when I say here's what best practice looks like, then I can help people, as the book title says, get in and on purpose about how they're going to manifest each of those attributes. So, I always tell you that I incubate ideas. I've literally been thinking about this book probably during that same window of time when I was incubating the idea for this company. It really I decided to birth it right just before COVID happened.
Mm.
So we spent 3 years concepting the book, pulling it together. And what it really is that I was a journalist. I wrote a column for our local newspaper from 2009 to 2019, and when it was called The Leadership Journey. And
Mm-hmm.
in that same period of time, I really started to evolve my leadership model, be more astute about my observations about leadership and my philosophy. So, and I was really beginning to pay attention to how Black women in particular approach the idea of being a leader. So the incubation of this idea, I want to write a book. What am I going to write about? I've been a guest author in a number of anthologies, but when I wrote my book, I decided, George, that I wanted to be a Black woman who
Mm-hmm.
wrote a business book focused on leadership through the lens of my observations about how women, Black women in particular, pursue the profession of leadership. So I was Googling all along Black Black leadership books about Black women. Mostly what popped up was autobiographies. There wasn't one that allowed you to interact with the process of
Mm.
allowing yourself to identify as a leader.
Sure.
So the book itself truly is a direct reflection of what I observe women doing on their journey to becoming a leader. And the crux of it is that piece about in and on your purpose. As leaders of color, we are often defined through the lens and the gaze of the organization we work for. So often when I say, well, who are you as a leader? People are like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, you need to think about that and you need to define it. You need to be in and on your purpose. Because once you're clear about who you are, then you can lead with confidence, competence, courage, and calm. And that's the X factor in your ability to drive outcomes. And I mean in your home, at work, or in the community. I think leaders need to live one life. And I think of myself as one of the most important leaders in my home. The how I say I'm the co-captain of Team Webber-McLeod. Tracy and I see this as our most important leadership responsibility. And that's the other thing. I want to pull that thought process from only being something you are at work. I'm saying be that in your own life and then do your work through that lens. Does that resonate when I say it that way?
Yeah, and I want to also pick up the fact that you're a co-captain of Team Webber-McLeod. You have a partner into which you are also in relationship with, and
Right.
so you also have to navigate that. And
Absolutely.
for and talk about that for Black women.
Right.
because that's where sometimes well, how is that working out for Black women? Let
Right.
me say it that way.
Right. Well, here's the deal. I fundamentally think leadership is not a job to do alone. And I just happen to be a Black woman who's been married to a Black man for 40 years. I have a lot of equally successful Black women colleagues who are in relationships, from situationships to relationships, right? And the idea behind it is, don't do this by yourself. So if you
Mm,
don't have a husband, you don't have a man, you got a circle of sisters that you need to lean into and ask to be your process partners, and ask to be part of your courage strategy when you're feeling fearful. And so how do I want to say that, statistically, data will say that there are a lot of Black women who are alone in the world. And I think because we get that pressure all the time, we will allow ourselves to believe it. I think there's a difference between feeling lonely in the world and being alone in the world. And so if a sister hasn't found her partner, I don't want her to think that she's alone in the world, because the minute I'm down that pathway, I have to be reminded there are literally hundreds of people. If I made one phone call, that would show up on my doorstep right now, and none of them would be Tracy McLeod,
mm.
right? And so it's so important for all of us, my male colleagues as well, to really, there's this thing that I talk about at work, right? 20% of the productivity, 80% of your productivity is driven by 20% of the people. I think in our personal lives, we might have 100% of people around us, but 20% of them are typically the ones that are going to really ride with us through whatever. We need to be clear about who those people are and activate them. Like, I have this team of people in my life I call my infrastructure team. They're this group of women, their sole job is to keep me courageous and not let me do anything crazy. They're my girls,
So,
you know?
let me combine that with this idea of Black women feeling like they're alone with
Right.
this whole superwoman thing,
Yeah.
right? Where I got so many other, I'm drained because I've got to be this to this and that to that, to the kids, to the men, to whoever I'm in relationship with, my partner, and I don't have anything left for me. So what do I do with that?
Right. Well, one thing in this book, we kind of get at that, because I'm of the opinion that that strong Black woman mythology kills Black women. And that if you observe what Black women die disproportionately of, it's all
Hmm.
stress related stuff. So
Hmm.
one of the reasons that I'm inviting women through this book to really think about who they are, defining themselves from their first inkling of thinking about being a leader to the point where they are in their careers that I am, where I'm legacy building, that the real way that the book is set up is to challenge any underlying belief, stories, or stereotypes you're telling yourself about who you are.
Right.
And the reality is that women, Black women, are all things to all people. But this book really presses in to the competency of calmness. And I'm saying to these women, let's give yourself permission to practice self-care. We all hear it in church, you can't serve the community if you're an empty vessel. Black
Right.
women hear that, but we don't practice it. And what I observe about us is that we first have to give ourselves permission to practice self-care, and that it literally then has to become a practice. We can't be haphazard about it, or we won't do it.
You know, talking with Gwen Webber-McLeod, she's the CEO of Gwen. Her book is called Your Leadership Journey, Living and Leading in and on Purpose. I think I got it right that time.
Yeah.
And so your decision to write the book, to put all of this down and to take us on a journey, you actually want us to really do a lot of self-reflection. And I think that oftentimes is, I don't want to say scary for folk, but that is a practice that we have to we have to practice more of that. Let me put it that way,
I would
because
agree.
right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, George, go ahead, finish your
No,
thought.
no, no. I was gonna say we have to practice more of that because we're not always practiced at that, to really take the time and then to, okay, now what did you get from that? Because you're asking us to really do some work here.
Right. Yeah, that's really true. And honestly, George, when I observe how women get to a place of being able to even say, I'm a leader and I'm the most important leader in my own life, that only happens after they've been supported in some way and giving themselves permission to think about that. And what that support looks like is creating opportunities for them to engage in self-reflection, right? And so the book is really set up where we kind of give you something to read, then we give you a little inspiration, then we let you ask a few questions, then you could take a breath, right? Pick the book back up. And so it moves that way because in real time, that's what I observe women do. That's exactly what happens in my executive coaching practice. And so that whole way, I think self-reflection is the most critical leadership skill set all leaders need to develop, and especially people of color, because we're under pressure. We're always busy being busy. And a lot of times when I say to a client, male or female, well, how do you feel about that? And they say, I don't know. And I say, and how does not knowing make you feel? A light bulb goes off for them, right?
Mm.
How is not knowing helping or hindering you from being full bodied into the work that you're trying to do here? So that's where I'm really going with that with them. And so
So
reflection is the way to get at that.
yeah, it's a reflection, inspiration, and also resources. It's really a really good tool, and I'm really glad that you put this together for us. All right, so Gwen, we need a little homework.
Need a little homework.
We need a little homework. All right, aside from getting the book, and the book is available at gweninc.com or at your favorite, online bookseller. But like, is it better to get it from you and then you have all the links to
Yeah,
everything?
so I'm not distributing myself. I'm going to be doing that when I do face-to-face book signings, right? But people, if they go to my website, they'll have all the links. So my
Right.
book was published by my colleagues' publishing company, Claire Songs Publishing. If people go there and purchase, financially, it works better for me, right? But it's
Okay.
also available on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. So whatever your groove is, just, it's so funny, George, because I've only really done a soft launch of the book. I'm refreshing my brand, so I'm going to do the ta-da probably in the spring. But just strategically leaking, this book has taken on this very interesting life of its own.
Right.
Continuing to hear from people all over the country that are finding it, using it. And George, I'm glad you talked about the intergenerational use of the book, because when I was originally writing the book, it's like my gift to new generations of women leaders. But established women leaders are picking up the book and saying to me, Gwen, I've just been busy being busy. So I've never thought about being in and on my own purpose. And the other beautiful thing that's happening is I'm inspiring women to buy the book, a copy for themselves and a copy for a woman they mentor, so that they use that to guide the conversations they have during their mentoring relationship. And the final thing that is happening is a lot of executive coaches are buying it and using it as a resource with clients in their coaching practices.
One of the things that you said, and you said a lot of things today,
Yeah.
but one of the things that really that stuck with me was your courage processing team when I'm feeling fearful about things.
Right.
And I think for some of us, especially men, I'll say,
Right.
they don't want to admit that.
Right.
We don't want to admit that we're fearful in a situation. We might call it something else, but
Right.
we're not going to really use those terms.
Right.
So how do you get comfortable with that?
Well, I invite my male colleagues, like my coaching practice. I have a specialty coaching practice for Black women, but I have male clients that are my coaching clients, right?
Right.
So I would say that if you have a trusted friend or colleague, you need to set the rules of engagement in your relationship that, bro, if you're having a problem or you're feeling anxious about something, I'm the person, right?
Yeah.
I want you to bring that to me. Because here's the thing that's true. For Black people, fear has historically been a factor for us since we arrived on the shores of America. And when I really think about, there's reasons we're not an extinct species. And I think it's because I love this Joyce Meyer quote, right? Just because you feel fear doesn't mean you can't do it afraid. I think for 400 years, Black leaders have been doing that. What I observe about us is that I think the danger in that, to a certain degree, is that you start to develop Superwoman, Superman mindset, which is harmful. What I'm observing as we're all evolving, and all of us across gender and age are being challenged to focus on our mental health. More of my male colleagues are recognizing that things that are coming out of them as anger, rage, fear, manning up, right? Sometimes alcoholism, drug, substance abuse is really suppressed fear that they've not called out. So to my male colleagues, and my male coaching clients do this as well, I'm inspiring you to find somebody, one person that you'll strike an agreement with, that you're going to be my safe haven and my soft landing. And whenever I'm on the edge, you're going to be the person that I call, right? As a coach, I get that call. As a mentor, which is related to, but not the same thing as coaching, right? I get that call. But my male colleagues, I'm inspiring you all to do it, because when I talk about what Black women die from, y'all are dying from it too. And it's for the same reason. Because we are in constant fight or flight mode. That alone does something to your body. So you got to have some courage strategies. And one of them, I think, is to understand that your life, living your life in which you are the most important leader, is not something you should try to do alone. And we're starting to see pastors start men's groups, talk more about mental health. And George, my husband's a retired correction officer, and one of the most poignant things Tracy ever said to me, as the age of these young men became younger and younger, he said, you know what, Gwen? If the Black community does not teach our sons how to feel real feelings, cry real tears, what they do with that suppressed emotion is sometimes they will pick up a real gun and shoot a real person, right? Or they will beat somebody's real daughter. That a lot of what explodes out of our sons and our fathers and husbands is suppressed fear, suppressed hurt, unresolved grief, right? And I always say this when I sit in major rooms, these kids in Syracuse weren't born that way. They are responding to things in their environment that are causing them to be in constant states of fears. Them kids have reasons to be mad, right? I don't condone the behavior. And so that's what I'm saying, especially to my male colleagues. It's critically important to find somebody that you can call when you're on the edge. And if you get the courage, go to a therapist, right? Get an executive coach, because you need that safe, confidential space for you to be all of who you are and still be defined as a man in the context of doing that.
Your leadership journey, living and leading in and on purpose, available at Gwen Inc. GWENINC.com.
Absolutely.
Gwen Webber-McLeod, CEO of Gwen Inc., trainer, coach, and a friend. I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your calm, courageous, competent, and calm. I forgot what courage.
Competence, courageous, and calm. Yeah.
For what you bring to our community. Inspiration for the nation celebrates people we feel good about, like our dear sister, Gwen Webber-McLeod. GwenInc.com. Get that book. And look for the big launch a little bit later, but start doing that work now. Let's go.
I agree.
Inspiration for the nation.
Thank you so much, George. And if I could offer a closing thought, as we head into Black History Month, I really want all of us to really think about the fact that we literally are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and to really even look into your own family. Who in your family made the conscious decision that they were going to live in and on a purpose that created the pathway for you to do the same? So we owe it. I feel we're historically obligated to our family members and our ancestors to embark on a journey of leadership that allows you to live head, heart, and spirit in and on your purpose, and to muster the courage to do the work that will enable you to do that. You will change the trajectory of generations of future members of your family.
And Ben, you and Gwen, you have no idea, but at the time of this conversation, I am thinking of, this is the day that my dad joined the Ancestors. This very day.
Wow.
So it's so fitting that you would say that.
Well,
All
you are
right.
legacy in action, George. Keep making him proud. Keep making.
And amen. Inspiration
Amen.
for the Nation. Gwen Inc. Get that book, Your Leadership Journey, Leading and Living in and on Purpose, Living and Leading in and on Purpose. Inspiration for the Nation.